Hey, Morgan, my video's not working.
Okay.
It
We
just
didn't
says
wanna-
you've stopped it.
Yeah, neither's mine, Morgan.
Okay. I think that for some reason it's got to be one of my settings. But I don't know how to change it. I tried to go back today and change my setting to allow that to happen, but it's just defaulted.
You just fixed it.
You have to put in the password. There you go. And the drink.
Okay, it looks like we got everybody rolling in. I'm just looking for Ann.
Does anyone have to go by?
Did you ever hear from Jillian? Jillian?
Jillian?
Yeah.
No, she wouldn't call me until she gets on, but I told her.
Okay.
How's our spunky fire chief? I saw his face for a moment. You healing up well, chief?
Actually, I'm doing good. Good, sir. I really am feeling good. Doing
Great.
full days here. I'll be walking pretty soon.
Good. Don't leave those firemen to push your wheelchair around. You might not like where you wind up at.
Yeah, my wife hid my wheelchair early on, so I finally had to go to crutches.
Hey, a few of you are showing up as M. Langhoff. If you can try to rename yourself so that we can see the actual names. I don't know why they're coming through as that, but
Okay, we're getting close. We're about a minute out.
Oh, that's me.
That's you.
Morgan, do you know how we rename ourselves?
I don't know how that happened.
I think most of us are like that. Joe, do you know how? Because you were earlier.
So when you click on your picture, there's 3 dots in the top of the right-hand corner of the screen. Click on the 3 dots and then you go down. The third option down is to rename. Click on that and you can type in your new name.
Oh, mine isn't giving me that. I can see the 3 dots, but it doesn't give me that.
Well, now
When you
I'm
click on the
Morgan.
3 dots, it doesn't give you an option.
No, it doesn't.
Are you on an iPad?
I know.
Yes, I am on an iPad.
Sometimes that complicates things.
What's wrong with you?
Morgan, you might be able to because you are the
Change
host.
our mic off.
Hey, Morgan's got that.
Oh.
What's wrong?
Somebody fixed it. Was that you, Morgan? Thank you.
Looks like Brian and I are still, Morgan.
Yeah. Council, we do need to get started. Morgan, have you got the tape running?
It's because we put.
yeah, you're good to start. And
Okay,
yes, I am going through and renaming. Sorry, guys.
okay, thank you. I do not see Ann on. I know she had another commitment. I assume she'll be rolling in here shortly. But I do need to get started. So if you don't mind, let's go ahead. Want to basically welcome everybody. This is the Roy City Council meeting for December 1st, 2020. We are in fact recognize that we do have Council Member Burrell, Council Member Saxton, Council Member Wilson. I do not see Council Member Jackson at this moment, but we do have Council Member Paul. So we will wait and see if we get Councilmember Jackson on board. Councilmember Jackson indicated that she was going to help us with this moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. In the absence of her not being available, Joe, would you mind stepping up and leading us with the flag in the back and leading us in a moment of silence?
I'd be happy to. I appreciate everybody coming to council meeting. If you'll please take a moment and bow your head for a moment of silence. All right, if you'll please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll move out of my screen and you can join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Okay, Joe, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, council. I'll watch for Jan and see if she comes in.
I think you
I'm here. I think it's Ann we're waiting for. Is that
Oh, I'm
correct?
sorry. Yeah, waiting for Ann. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
I just wanted to make sure I was
You
showing
were
up.
good. Yep, that's correct. You're good. Okay. Let me, if I can, I want to just basically for the record indicate to you that as of the 23rd November, Roy City had in fact 1,578 active cases of the COVID virus. In that 1 week from the 23rd of November to the 30th of November, our city jumped up to 1,686. That's well over 100 more cases. The county itself is experiencing about 150 cases daily as we try to work through this difficult pandemic. In light of this pandemic and how active it is moving right now, I will indicate to you that it's in our best interest to consider using this Zoom meeting process. And so I'd like to read this statement to you. I, Mayor Robert Dandoy, in accordance with State Code Section 52-3-2074, have determined that conducting a meeting in the Roy City Council chambers presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who would be present at the City Council chambers. The basis of this determination is that due to the infectious nature and potential dangerous health effect of contracting the COVID-19 virus, there is not sufficient space in the City Council chambers to provide appropriate, safe physical distancing for the safety of individuals who attend. Accordingly, on this date, which is December 1st, 2020, the meeting will be held electronically without an anchor location. So we're basically, council, going to continue this until such time we see changes in the pandemic issue around us. Not sure when that will happen, but as you agreed, let's don't put our people or you at risk. So with that, we do have some consenting items, and I'd like to address the consenting items at this time. The consent items are approval of the October 20th, 2020 Roy City Council work session minutes and the request to approval of an alcoholic beverage license for So Delicious Japanese Wasubi located at 1780 West, 5600 South. Any comments or questions on that, council?
Just
Make a
on
motion
the minutes, there are some minor changes that have been submitted to Morgan.
Yeah, I've submitted
Make a
them. It
motion,
sounds like
we-
I did. Go
I
ahead.
make a motion, we approve with the submitted changes.
Okay, I
second
have an appropriate from Joe Paul to approve the consent items. And Diane, did you second? Diane second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then those consent items are approved. Thank you. I'm going to juggle the agenda around a little bit. There's some reasons for this, so bear with me if you will. I'd like to move the presentation, the fiscal year 2020 audit report, and like to have that presentation provided now. And then I'm going to move the public comment period just after that. So Scott, if you'll take a moment and share your thoughts on the recent audit that the city went through. Thank you.
You bet, Mayor. Appreciate you having us today. And can you hear me first of all?
We can, go ahead.
Okay. So we have completed our audit, and we just wanted to, as part of our responsibility to the city, we present you with our opinion. So our job is to provide an opinion on your financial statements based on our procedures. So we've gone through our procedures, which we're required to follow generally accepted auditing standards. So we did follow those standards in our audit, which involved analyzing risk and whatnot as part of our procedures, and we completed that. And as part of our audit, we are issuing the opinion that the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects. So this is called an unmodified opinion. And we see no issues with the financials as far as their materiality. They appear to be correctly stated and compliant with state and federal regulations as far as we can see. So we did have a few issues that we saw as we were doing the audit, a couple management points that we've discussed with management, and they have come up with some procedures to address those issues. And so we are satisfied that the procedures that are now in place will be, they're appropriate in the circumstances, and they will be, if they're followed, they should resolve the issues that we found. We appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and again, thought it went well. We had great cooperation from the staff, from employees, from top down. So we were appreciative of that, and helped us in this crazy time to take care of this required audit. So with that, that's basically what I wanted to share with you today. So.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. Council, any comments or questions for Scott?
I'd like to make a comment, Mayor. I was in the audit meeting today, and I just wanted to thank the audit team, both our external and our internal team that worked so closely with even the issues that came up in the recommendations going forward. I thought they were very helpful with one another and gave us some good recommendations.
Great comment.
I agree. Absolutely. It was a good presentation, and thank you to all.
Okay, great comment. Okay, thank you. And Camille, thanks for your efforts in this process. Obviously, a great audit team that was working with us, but equally important, to great solutions and how you're able to manage the financial opportunities and issues associated with the city. So thank you with your efforts and your team's efforts. Great job all around. So thank you. Okay, any other comments relative to the audit? Okay, Scott, thank you. We appreciate your input, and obviously we look forward to continue this relationship.
Appreciate
okay,
it.
I'd like to basically now move the public comment period up so that we can get some input from the public on some issues they have. So with that, I'm going to ask Morgan, can you tell me who we may have sitting right there who'd like to make comment?
Yes, Mayor. I believe right now we have 4 people that have requested to make comment.
Okay.
I know that there was a couple that were kind of going to be in and out. So first, I believe we have Terry Anderson.
Terry, are you there?
Should be allowed to talk if it'll work.
Terry?
Yes, I'm there.
Please.
Do we need to make a motion? Well,
it's just a public comment period. We're not focusing on anything.
Terry, thank you.
Okay. So Terry, go ahead and share your thoughts with us.
Okay, my comments are in regards to something that's going to come up later in the meeting, which is the rezone request for property at 2449 West, 4000 South.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, we feel the proposal for this rezone is inappropriate due to the pending lawsuit regarding access to the property. And I think that lawsuit should be in the record. I'd like to give you the numbers and where it come from. The lawsuit is JWMP Acquisitions versus defendants, myself, Terry Anderson, And I won't list them all, but there are 5 other property owners. And this is case number 200904100. It's pending in the Second Judicial Court of Weber County. I would just like that to be on the record. And I believe the city council should have received a letter initiated by Ed Weekland that explained all of our concerns. Is that correct? Did you receive that?
Yes.
Yes, we did. Yeah, the council received some comments from Edward, and they are also part of the record in terms of making part of this entire discussion.
And Mayor, I did receive a letter, and also Matt did too, from their attorney.
So both the attorney and the city manager received a copy of that as well. Perfect. Okay, Terry, anything else you'd like to share with us?
No, I believe that should be all of my comments for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Terry. Okay, Morgan, who's next?
Next, we have Ed Weekland.
Okay.
Ed?
Yes.
Perfect.
Go ahead, Ed. Go ahead and tell us what you're thinking.
Well, I just, you evidently got the document I sent. It pretty well explains it, but the lawsuit that has been filed by Mr. Wilson and his partner basically is seeking damages, monetary damages for harm caused by us property owners for blocking their development by not approving paving our driveway. In addition to that, they want the court to force us to allow them to pave the driveway, and also a court injunction to prohibit owners from opposing the road in the future. So if we don't get our comments in now, and this goes through court and we're found against, we have no avenue. So primarily it is the comment is, first, there's only a 30-foot right-of-way. This driveway was done just as that, as a driveway. There's no setback between the buildings and the driveway. That's required normally for 20 foot by the city to have a clearance between a building and a public thoroughfare. This is physically impossible due to the configuration of the roadway right now. There are many other issues. There's the water runoff. If it's paved, there are state and Royce City requirements for stormwater runoff. Who's going to be responsible for this? The property owners will currently be responsible for the property after it's paved, and we'll also have financial liability for any accidents occurring on this property, yet we have no control over it. So that's why we're opposing this. First is a safety issue, and there's the requirement for a 60-foot, the city requires normally 60-foot wide right-of-way or pavement with a curb and gutter and an adjoining sidewalk. It's physically impossible to do this. I understand there's some folks in the planning department that think a 30-foot wide right-of-way is acceptable, but to us property owners, it's going to kill us, both financially and the ability to either operate the business that I have a license for, because I can't get out of my building, and directly onto a paved road. If it's paved, but it still becomes or still is private property, there's no speed limits, no traffic controls, so there's no way we can control how the traffic will go up and down this road. So basically what we'd like to have ask is that zoning change be tabled till the outcome of the lawsuit, or that the proposed zoning change be denied. thank you for listening to my comments.
Okay, Ed, thank you for your input. Okay. Morgan, do you have somebody else who wants to talk?
Yes. The next person that signed up to talk is Lacey. She should be allowed now.
Lacey, okay. Lacey, go ahead, please.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah. I just want to say that I'm grateful that you're able to move the comments so that we could speak before you voted on the rezoning. That is something that's close to us here at home. And we just ask that you take into consideration, we don't mind the manufacturing, light manufacturing. I feel bad for those that are doing the lawsuit, so we would like to be thoughtful of them and make sure that's cleared up. But if it is, we don't mind the light manufacturing. We just hope that they might still consider putting in a condition where they can't go above a certain height, like 35, 30, whatever feet, so that we're not getting repercussions of the noise even worse from the trains that we have. I did stipulate all of that in my email, mostly what I said in the email that I sent to the city council are my thoughts and feelings, but I do hope that you'll keep that into consideration, and we do want to work with the city, and we know that you guys have changes that you want to make. I just hope that as a community we can come to a compromise as to where it will be affecting us being so close to home. So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Lacey. And by the way, I should indicate to you, we did see your email that had been distributed to the council members, and it will be part of the public record.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, we have one more, Morgan.
Yes, this is a Mr. Buckley. He has also requested to speak. And then I also had a request to invite both Josh and Matt here. If they were wanting to speak, they're, I believe, the ones that have submitted this request.
Okay, they're the applicants, okay.
Yeah, so Mr. Buckley is next, so.
Mayor,
please.
Matt and Josh should be able to talk during the presentation so they can describe the project rather than staff describing the project.
Okay, that'll be fine. That'd be good. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Buckley. I don't see a Morgan.
Sorry, it's, I'm trying to allow him to talk.
Okay, if you can work that.
Okay, there, he should be able to now.
There he is. Okay, thank you. Mr. Buckley, could you give us your first name?
Mike Buckley.
Mike, please go ahead.
Yep, I don't want to be redundant. I'm Lacey's neighbor. And I know a lot of us on this street, 2675 West, all pretty well have the same concern. I don't want to talk for everybody, but I know that a lot of us on the street know that something needs to be done down there on that property that we're talking about. I've lived here 30 plus years, and I've always known that when I first moved in, you could go all the way to Midland, and I believe you could even go pheasant hunting, and we've watched all the houses come up. So I know that property eventually would be filled with something. My concerns that I have are first off height, and I listened to the Planning Commission meeting, I believe it was on November 10th. And I know there was a lot of comments brought up at that time about the height, and that was, 60 feet, I think is what it is for light manufacturing. We did some testing back here to see what 60 feet would be. Oh my heavens, that's scary. I know a year ago, well, the beginning of the year, there was all the talk about the form-based code or housing. I'm not sure if I'm speaking properly there, but about the big apartment complexes going in down there and over here in the orchard and building this big walking community with the front runner right there. And it got everybody in an uproar in this neighborhood because of those heights. And I know Steve Parkinson has always mentioned that even if it's the light manufacturing, that they can still go 60 feet. I believe I've talked with some of the neighbors down the street, and I believe they've had most of the city council at their home at one time as the trains have gone by, so that they could see what that would do, not only to those that live along the tracks, but I'm sure that would cause a big sound wall where that sound would really go up the hill and cause problems. And I don't know if there's an ordinance on decibels or whatever, noise ordinance, but I'm sure that would definitely increase. Now, when I bought my house, the tracks were there. I understood that, and I have no problem with Union Pacific being my neighbor. But I'm afraid that if we allowed that to go that high, it would be a problem. I'm not against the light manufacturing. I do want to put that out there. I do feel for those that are already there, that have spoken before us, and the issues that that's bringing up with them, where they've already been there, built their businesses there, and now they have to deal with all this. I feel it's the same way. Listening to the Planning Commission, it seemed to me when I was listening to that when these comments were brought up, that the city was not, and maybe I'm wrong, and Steve, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that there couldn't be a stipulation put in place to only have it at 30 feet or 35 feet, that if light manufacturing is 60 feet, that it has to be 60 feet, and that it wouldn't be a good idea to try and change that, and that you couldn't put a stipulation in there that you could only build 30 feet. I don't know if that's correct or not. I believe that rezoning changes in the past, and I think the beginning of this year, there was a rezoning change at approximately the property at, I don't remember the landowners, but down the street from us here on 5100 South and 2700 West, that when that was rezoned so they could start building homes there, that when it was rezoned, there was a condition put in place on that rezoning that only townhomes be built there. And I believe that was in the Planning Commission in February. And then I believe that was voted upon by the City Council in either March or April with that condition put in place. So maybe Steve can explain that, if that is something that can be done or can't be done, because it seems like it has been done with conditions in the past. Like I said, everyone I think knows that something's got to go into that property down there. Those that own that property down there, they deserve a right, I guess, to be able to recoup their money and build something that's profitable for them. But I know that, I think it's Josh, I'm not sure the names, but I know they've also been down to some of my neighbors and spoken with them. And according to the neighbors, they have given them their word that this is not, that they want to build storage units. And I'm sure we're going to talk about this later. And that it wouldn't be 60 feet high, but there's nothing stopping them from building 60 feet high. And they're taking them for their word, but they could end up selling that property, or once this passes, there's nothing stopping them from going 60 feet high. And I don't know that they would go 60 feet high. I don't know them and all, but I guess I'll quit rambling and just say my concern is you'll have a big noise problem. And like you said, the light manufacturing, I think, would be a win-win. It seems like it's running into problems to put housing down there as is. And when we tried to do that before, it caused a big uproar. I think during that Planning Commission meeting that more people were for the idea of the storage units going in down there than were against it, just with that height restriction. So I hope, and I've heard comments on Facebook, and I've heard comments from people in general that don't live in this general area. They don't understand why those that live here are making a fuss about it, or get with it and let's get Roy moving forward and all. But I've been here 30 plus years. Most of us have. These are our homes. And I understand progress needs to be made, but they're not being impacted by these changes, and we are. I know in that Planning Commission meeting, it was talked about our views, and I don't remember who it was in that planning commission meeting. It upset me. Said, you didn't buy your house for a view. We don't have to worry about your view. Tell that to all those millionaires that buy their houses up there on the bench and up in the mountains that they didn't buy their house for a view. I don't have $1 million or that kind of money to buy a house like that for a view. When I bought this house, I had a beautiful view and I see beautiful sunsets. That was one of the reasons I bought this home. And I know that's the same with the lot down the tracks here. So I know that's probably not a big argument, but for me it is. So I'm just putting that out there, and I know it is for others. We get beautiful sunsets out there, and I'm telling you, if you went 60 feet high, there would be no seeing those sunsets. The sun wouldn't even hit my backyard except at noon. From what we saw measuring, and I don't know how accurate that is, but anyway, just a little passionate about it. Hope that that's taken into consideration, and maybe Steve can explain a little later that if it is possible to have conditions, because it seems it was already done earlier this year with what I had just talked about. So I don't understand why we can't put conditions on a height back here. And furthermore, if we are holding, I guess it's Josh or the landowners, I'm sorry, I don't know your names. I'm sure you're listening. If you have given your word that you're not going to build more than a story high or 30 feet, you wouldn't have a problem with this passing. If you were planning something different, you would have a problem with this passing with this condition. Anyway, thanks for listening to me, and thank you Mayor for moving this to the comments before the vote rather than the vote and then comments.
Okay, Mike. Hey, thank you. Thanks for your comments. Let me just make for the record, we do have written comments from both Stan, Lacey, Mike, and Edward. Those council has seen all those written comments, and they will become part of the public record. So thank you. Morgan, do we have anybody else wanting to talk?
Mayor, I had one other person that had requested access into the meeting, a Mr. Todd Peterson. I did send him an email invitation, but it bounced back to me. His email address came back as undeliverable. So he was the only one that I know that wanted to make a comment, but I don't have anything from him.
Okay, well, technology, it's unfortunate. We just have to move on. So again, we appreciate council getting some public input on some important issues. It was important to make sure that you heard those. And what we need to now do is just move into part of the business. So with that, I'd like to start addressing the action items. With that, we're going to discuss Resolution 20-37 approving the 2021 City Council meeting dates. Matt, I believe you're putting it in front of us today. Need to have your mic.
Got me there.
Thank you, Matt.
Each year we have to adopt the following year 2021 City Council dates. We always have done it traditionally on the first and third Tuesday, as you all know, at 5:30. We need to adopt this resolution to hold those dates for planned city council meetings. At later dates, we have the opportunity, if we don't have the stuff on the agenda to cancel those, we'd send out council agendas. But in the incident where there as a holiday or anything like that, we don't put it on there. I believe the only date that would not be on there is the election date for next year, that first week in November. So I would recommend that we approve resolution 20-37.
Thank you. Comments, council? Okay,
I
hearing none.
move
Do I
that we
have?
adopt resolution 20-37.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve resolution 20-37, which is the 2021 City Council meeting dates. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so Councilmember Wilson provided the motion to approve, and Councilmember Burrell second that. This is a roll call vote. So Morgan, would you go ahead?
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton.
Aye.
Councilmember Paul.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson.
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, council. Appreciate that. Okay, we've got a couple of things we want to go through here. The first one will begin with the ordinance 20-13. This is to amend the general plan future land use map from mixed use to light industrial and plus warehouse. That's the motion. Okay. We've already had some public comment, as you've heard earlier on this. I'd like to turn this over to Steve and go ahead and start the discussion and then entertain any questions or comments from the council. Steve?
Well, first of all, we'd probably take both the ordinances 20-13 and 20-14 and present them at the same time because they do deal with the same property.
Yeah.
I would like to have Matt Peterson and Josh Wilson, who are the applicants, present what they've got. Again, want the applicants to present themselves and not staff present their project.
Okay. Matt, Josh, I see you're up. Go ahead if you'd like to share your thoughts on this particular amendment. Josh?
Are you there? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Perfect. No, we're just wanting to have that rezone for light manufacturing to do the storage units, and just talking with the neighbors and everybody around there, it seems like it's just impossible to do a townhome project there. So I think with both to the north and to the south, with it being light industrial, just makes the most sense to keep that conforming with what's already there, and it would please most people in the city.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Matt, did you want to say something as well? You're on mute, Matt.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we were in the process of getting this rezoned for multifamily. A lot of people had concerns about apartment complexes going in there, the height of those, the traffic that would be involved. The property owners that made comments at the first of the meeting, they said that their biggest concern was potential vandalism if there were apartments nearby, and the traffic that would be there if we had a few hundred units next to their property, where people would have to access it off of 4000 South to get into the project. So in going over what would be the best use for this, the thing that basically satisfied everybody's complaints at the city meetings was to do storage units. The height wouldn't be anything that would create a sound wall. It wouldn't block anybody's view. That seems to be the biggest concern. Like the last gentleman said, they're really concerned that their views would be blocked. But in putting a restriction on rezoning a property, from what I understand and speaking with our attorney, if there was a restriction put on the rezone for the height, that would be along the lines of regulatory taking, where we're making a change to a zoning application to protect somebody's view. I don't know if anyone has actually come up with a study that shows what the sound reverberation would be of taller buildings. We don't have any intent of doing anything even close to 60 feet. And I think rather than putting some restriction in the zoning, it would be a lot easier if we just agreed for like a development agreement where we limited our height through that. The other owners of the property, where they called it a private drive, but it's not. It's a prescriptive easement that runs from 4000 across their properties over to our property that is 30 feet wide. We need to have a paved road for fire access to have any kind of a structure put up there. And I believe that the minimum requirement would be 26 feet wide. So there's already a 30-foot easement from the walking trail to where their easement is. Technically all of our easement is. And we would be needing to pave 26 of that 30 feet, and it wouldn't prevent anybody from pulling in and out of their business. It literally is just improving their access into their properties, but they're trying to kind of paint the picture that it would hurt them in some way. And in reality, instead of it being a gravel road, it would be a paved road and be better access for everybody, especially the fire department.
Okay, Matt, anything else you want to share with us?
I don't believe so. If anybody has any questions for me, definitely let me know.
Okay. Steve, you want to continue the conversation, or are you ready for to start city council comments?
Well, no, I'll kind of present the staff findings and stuff like that of the project and what the recommendations were from the Planning Commission. Like to share my screen here. Can everybody see an aerial map?
Yes.
Okay. So this is just kind of the area 4,000 south on the top, Midland Drive on the left, North Park Elementary is on the right, and then down at the bottom where now you've also got a hand and an arrow and all that is West Park subdivision with West Park just to the left. The property in question is highlighted in yellow. So you kind of get an idea, and then the front runner station is identified by the little train there. So when you look at the future land use map before 2017, before the adoption of the Focus Roy, the area was to be light manufacturing. So they wouldn't be looking for a general plan amendment if they did it this time, but just a rezone, because the zoning hasn't changed. So I bring that up just again so you can see that prior to the Focus Roy, this was to be light manufacturing. After the Focus Roy, the whole area changed to be a mixed use. Identified properties in that area to be mixed use, and these kind of the vacant lands that are there. Hence why they need a change in the general plan. It wouldn't necessarily change what used to be 3 years ago, it's just what is today. So when you look at the zoning map, again, light manufacturing kind of in the purple, both north of them and south of them, and they're the only ones that are still zoned RE20. So the request is basically just to be same zoning as what's to the north and the south of them. To kind of answer some of the questions that came up during both Planning Commission and what you've experienced tonight with the public comment. The city, when the Planning Commission was asked this question, that they should table it and not proceed until the lawsuit has been satisfied. Brody, the counsel for the Planning Commission, and Andy may be able to speak up for you guys, was the city wasn't involved in the lawsuit, and zoning a property doesn't change anything other than the color on a map. Issues would come up if we were trying to develop the property, then yes, the lawsuit does come into play because how they gain access to a property now becomes an issue. So for a rezone, whether this is zoned RE20 or light manufacturing, access will always be an issue. So they have to resolve that regardless of what development they put on there. So if it's, stays green, if the council tonight denies it, or if it gets changed to light purple because the council approves it, it doesn't change anything other than the color on a map. Just kind of going through some of their comments. Some of the issues that we talk about is a noise wall. We also got to remember that any developments that occur next to residential, they have 100-foot requirement from the boundary line that they can't build anything taller than what the ordinance allows in those residential zones. So on the east side of this property next to the railroad tracks, they couldn't build anything taller than 35 feet. And then same with on the west side of the property. So that property now starts becoming smaller to where they would be able to build something 60 feet tall. Again, that's the same requirement for those people to the north and people to the south. So it's not that all of a sudden a 60-foot building, if that was allowed, would be built right at property line going up. It would have to be pushed back 100 feet before a 60-foot portion of a building could exist. So you need to take that in consideration. So 100-foot separation between the railroad track and the building won't have a huge noise effect as opposed to the 25-foot setback that those homes have that are taller than the railroad tracks. You know, they are kind of a sound wall into themselves. So anybody on the east side of 2675 probably isn't as noisy as those on the west side of 2675. So take that into account as well when you start discussing this item on, you know, inputting in limitations or not. I know Mr. Peterson had brought up regulatory taking. I'll let Andy talk about that if it is or if it isn't. It has been done in the past. I've told Andy this, I kind of cringe a little bit when things like that happen, but if the developers are okay with it, then there's not much to it. Matt did suggest maybe a development agreement of some sort be put in place. That again is something that the developer and the city can go into to have those limitations put on the property and for their development. But that again, we'll let Andy kind of talk about that some more. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing for the project. Within your staff report that did show several people who had commented at the beginning of it. There were several of them, and many of them you had heard from tonight and probably received emails from if they couldn't be here. There was nothing different that they had said during the Planning Commission public hearing in November than what is being talked about tonight. The Planning Commission, excuse me, did vote 4-3 on a recommendation to change the general plan from mixed use to light industrial warehousing. And then they voted 7-0 for recommendation to change the zoning. The biggest debate again is you can't change the zone if the general plan doesn't suggest that. So their biggest concern was, does it meet the general idea of the area? Does it meet that concept that the general plan wants and needs? And that was more where their debate was in that conversation. And then their vote for the rezone kind of followed suit as the general plan had kind of been quote unquote amended. This was one that staff did not provide a recommendation. Reason for that is it's twofold, kind of two different minds that are thinking. The first was, what's the best development for the area? When you think about what it is and access being limited and stuff like that, you kind of now start to have two thoughts. The Focus Roy talked about it needing to be mixed use residential to help with the numbers of tracks, to be more of a TOD type development. UTA would like, you know, land within a half mile of them to be multifamily. So my planning side says, you know, that's what we need to have it. So I would recommend denial. But then the practical side, thinking access wise, they're not going to be able to do it. Light manufacturing, especially storage units, the fire department has already said they only need one access. So I kind of was at two minds. So I thought, no, I'm not going to make a recommendation. I'll let the Planning Commission kind of think on their own without staff, you know, leading them through that recommendation portion. So what you have in front of you is what the Planning Commission wanted or recommended. Yeah. Oh, okay. On the easement itself, it actually, the easement that's there, the 30-foot easement, was actually put in place and recorded on those properties for Hooper Water. So that's even one parcel south of what Matt and Josh are looking for. So if you go back to this map where my hand is, this is the Hooper Water property. So the easement goes from 4,000 and goes all the way down to Hooper Waters property. Whether it's paved, to them, it doesn't matter at this point if it's paved or not, because they don't have anything there. But if they do all of a sudden install some water storage tanks, they're going to want to be able to have access to it. Currently, there are 2 businesses on this easement. One has direct access to 4,000, one does not. So if this was a brand new business, the fire department would also require that he have a paved right of way. So it really does benefit all of them for fire access, especially the sheds and stuff in the back. If there was a fire, the fire department would never be able to access them during the winter because it's never paved. So those are things that you need to consider. Open to any questions.
Okay, council, comments or questions?
So you say that's an access. Is that a true right of way, Steve?
It is an easement for all property owners from 4,000 south down to use. There are restrictions on it. They can't block it. So any one of those property owners above Hooper cannot block that access. They can't build on that access. They can't, again, it's a restricted thing upon their properties.
But the main purpose of it is to gain access to the properties.
Correct.
Let me ask you a couple of questions, if you don't mind, Steve, just for clarification.
Yep.
Which parts of this was actually in Weber County and was just recently brought into Royce City as part of an annexation?
It's the 2 properties on to the north. Here, let me reshare my screen for you with that aerial and it kind of. So you got Todd Potter's property. That's that muffler shop that's on 4,000, and Ed Weekland's property that he has a automotive repair shop. Those were the 2 properties that were brought in during the annexation with Weber County.
Okay.
The other properties were part of Roy for a long time now.
Okay. I just want to make sure we have that clarification. Help me with this one. The purpose of putting the annexation, or excuse me, the purpose of putting the mixed-use development clause in there was in a requirement Senate Bill 34. Is this change going to impact, in your opinion, Royce City's compliance to the requirement for Senate Bill 34?
Well, my UTA was notified about this, and I have not received anything. I don't know if you guys have received anything from them opposing it or approving it. But Senate Bill 34 was more the requirement to put it in the general plan for moderate to low income housing. We did put 10 items in there that we discussed last meeting. To me, we can still satisfy the bill if the UTA property that's to the east of the railroad tracks, develops as a multifamily. This one we could easily justify saying because of access, because of topography, because of, and list a dozen of things that it couldn't never be developed as multifamily.
Yeah, because there's not an egress ingress, you're never going to get that to be multifamily residential unless you were ever able to get an access over the DNRG trail, which I doubt UTA is ever going to grant that. They may if they thought they were going to get some density here in ridership, but I highly doubt that. I mean, it makes the most sense to change this to light manufacturing, but I do have a concern with it, and I'll make that concern known when I make the
just to let you
motion.
know, they did approach UTA about an access across the DNRG. If you see my hand again, I don't know if you guys can see it. There's a cul-de-sac that was right here, right next to the DNRG trail. Matt and Josh put an offer on the home and had it under contract to be able to get a road across the DNRG trail because it is about a 5-6 foot topography change. They went to UTA to get that approval. UTA, to do a long story short, denied that unless the city was willing to close 2 other crosses. So, close 4,000 south from being a crossover, close 5,200 south, or close 48, or close 6,000. So that would never happen. So in essence, UTA almost themselves said, no, it can't be developed because we're not going to give you an access. They have tried numerous things in order to get that second required access for multifamily or living, single family. And
that's why I think this makes most sense to go to white manufacturing. I also have another concern. A couple of the residents said, or the people that spoke said, we ought to table this pending the lawsuit. That lawsuit could take years. I don't think we can put the city on hold for a lawsuit. We may table it for a month for further investigation, but I don't think you can put it on hold for the lawsuit. I think if there is access to that property via that 30-foot easement, then I think we're covered. What do you say, Andy?
Andy, you have some comments.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that because we did get that request from one of the attorneys there, but I don't think we should table it because of a lawsuit. So we're not a party to that lawsuit. This is an application that was brought before us, went through Planning Commission, is before us now. By whether we approve it or not, well, let's just say we approve this rezone. They've still got other hurdles to get through. That lawsuit, that's going to be a hurdle, and then there's access issues that'll be a hurdle too. So, but by us approving this, it doesn't. Again, it's not approving that development. So
I have one question for you, Andy. Can this be approved with a height stipulation? Can I make a motion to approve the change of land use?
Let me tell you what I think on this, Councilman Paul. You can either vote on it either way. You can table it if you want, but you can pass it contingent on a development agreement that limits it to 3 stories high. And so, I mean, you could do that tonight. Then I could work on an agreement with the parties and make it where it has that limitation on it.
Okay.
We ready to make a motion then?
No, I want to make sure we get all the comments in. So let's get comments. Let's start at the top. Brian, you have a comment.
A couple of questions.
Go ahead.
First of all, for the developer, how many storage units are they looking at putting in there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Matt.
Okay.
Yes.
More than likely, the way that things look right now is we would look to develop 5 acres of that total 10 acres as storage units. And they can vary depending on size. Some of them are smaller, some of them are larger, but generally all kind of the size of a single car garage or a double car garage. So until we have the rezone, where we haven't necessarily invested a lot of money into having them designed yet, based off of what the needs would be. We wouldn't do anything like the cube storage where they're multi-levels and there's, just they're basically like rooms that people are putting things in. These would be like your standard drive-through storage units that you see all around every town.
How many can typically fit on a 5-acre plot?
You just, depending on how you design the roads and depending on how big you're making each unit, and size isn't necessarily height, because if people are storing, say they're moving out of a property and they're storing their goods, it doesn't do us any good to have the storage units 60 feet tall because nobody could even place their items that high in the unit. So really it's more just width, and we would develop that for the 5-acre piece, and more than likely want the other 5 acres for open storage, and to potentially down the line Go ahead.
I guess, Matt, my question would be regarding how much access would you need? So if you have 100 units, it would be very different than 20 units. So.
Sure. The access we would need is just wide enough for a fire truck to get in and out, since it's not multifamily and it doesn't have the same regulations that you would have with residential. There's not really an issue with number of units. I mean, we're not going to do anything that's smaller than about a single car garage sized unit. So we wouldn't pack in 3,000, little 4 foot by 4 foot storage units or anything like that. It would be very
But
similar.
that
You'd
number
probably
would
get-
be of interest to me to know how much access you would need. The number, I think that's what I'm hearing Mr.
Well,
Saxon.
And we thought of that when we basically when we wanted to do this rezone to have storage units in there. It's not very common that people would go to a storage unit on a daily basis. That's something that people go in and out of a few times a year, maybe once or twice a month at most. So as far as traffic and people getting in and out of there, there's not really many storage facilities that have high traffic.
Oh,
Okay, Brian, you had a couple other questions. Go ahead.
You open storage, 5 acres of open storage. That doesn't mean uncovered RVs and things like that, right?
What would make the most sense would be to pave that area and have it be like an open covered storage where, if people wanted to store boats, things like that, they could. I mean, the ultimate idea is to have that full 10 acres be all storage units. It just, the demand may not be there for 10 solid acres of storage units right now. So, yeah, the thing that makes the most sense is to do open storage on the additional 5 acres.
Hey, Steve, you wanted to add a comment to this. Go ahead.
Just one last one.
Okay, go ahead, Brian.
I promise.
That's okay.
Changing the property to light manufacturing, does that open the door for something else other than storage units to
Steve,
be built there?
Go ahead and answer that.
Well, again, Brian, as Andy had mentioned, it could be part of your development agreement. You could say, we approve this rezone with a development agreement of limiting it to storage units in 30 feet. Those type of things, but Matt would need to agree upon that, but those are type of things you can do within a development agreement, is say, this is what it's going to be. You can't all of a sudden rezone it light manufacturing, Matt sells it, and now you're getting lack of better words, a company that pounds sand, into cubes all of a sudden. So that development agreement protects the city on what exactly you're wanting and gives Matt, the developer, or if he sells it, an idea of exactly what they can do.
So to your question, Brian, the fact of the matter is that there's about 12 or 15 different things that could be done in a light manufacturing zone.
And
you can read them. Yeah, if you look at
some
table 17.
Very popular, Mayor.
Yeah. So, but I think what Steve is indicating to you is that if in fact the council thinks there's value in changing the zone, then you can put a development agreement that specifically states what you are allowing. I find that interesting, okay? But according to Andy, it's legal. So you just need to consider that piece of it. But to your question, anything that's currently found inside of the light manufacturing zoning requirement, according to table 17, any developer, any landowner can operate in that particular requirements outlined there. So just to answer your question. Diane, I think you had question you would like to ask.
Yes, please. So some of this is to Matt or Josh and others, and then also Andy. I'll just list them all at once and we can go over them. First of all, I was just wondering what the, when I had talked with Matt earlier in the year when they first proposed this, he had talked about having access from 4800 South, and I was wondering why we're not doing access from there now. Number two, I've got concerns about the access from 4000. That's a very dangerous area. If you've got big rigs that are gonna be coming in with trailers to be having outdoor storage and stuff, you know, what in regards to the line of sight and accidents and proposing in and out of that, how that goes. He had also mentioned, number three, that about 200 plus units of storage sheds and on 5 acres at one point, and then you know, the 5 acres of open. And so I was wondering if you could give me like a proposed vehicle count of people coming in and out of that, what that would be like. And I think that's the stuff I'd like to, oh, and then snow removal. How is the snow removal taken care of on that right of way once that's paved? Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the access from 4800 to 4000, there are multiple property owners between 4800 and 4000. For us to have a road that ran the entire length, we do have a contract with Hooper Water for a sliver of their property, but there's an additional 5 acres that's owned by a gentleman out of North Carolina. His last name's Freeman, and he has no interest in selling his property at this point. It sounds like he's going to just pass it on to family down the line. So without him being open to allowing a roadway through his property, that's just impossible to have that access. So that's what makes doing any multifamily impossible. The other option was to cross over the trail, but again, UTA won't allow that without closing 2 other access points to create 1 new one. If you're concerned about the traffic from big rigs coming in, do you mean during construction, or that there would be big rigs if it was light industrial and there was some gigantic building there, or what was the concern there?
Both, because, you know, if you're going to have outdoor storage, first of all, construction, but if you have outdoor storage, you may well have large motor homes with trailers and boats, and just getting in that area could be very difficult as well as the other. So both.
Sure. Okay. So like I said before, when you're dealing with storage facilities, people aren't generally accessing it on a daily basis like you would see with residential or multifamily. Somebody is going to store a motorhome there. It's going to probably stay there all winter long and get pulled out in the summertime. Same thing with a boat. Additionally, with any of the storage units themselves, anybody that would be accessing those, as you know, it's fairly rarely done, you know, so people go to their storage units a couple times a year. It's not something that people access every week or every day. So the traffic amount would be minimal compared to anything else you could put here. If we did a big light industrial building and there were employees coming in and out every single day, that's a whole different story. But that's really why the storage units make the most sense. We don't need the wider access. We can keep it at 26 feet to satisfy the fire department. We're not having a secondary access issue like we would have with multifamily. We're not bringing a big business in there that would have a 60-foot tall building and employees and a manufacturing warehouse being run out of there where traffic would be an issue. I mean, this idea of storage units literally satisfies every complaint that we saw brought up earlier when we were trying to get multifamily approved through the city. Your next question, vehicle count, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there's been any studies done on what the average storage facility vehicle, I do not have an answer for you on vehicle count for a storage unit facility. And then snow removal, we're more than happy to deal with the other 6 property owners about paving that road, and we would be responsible for maintaining it along with any liability if there was an accident, and also deal with any maintenance, any snow removal. Literally all we're doing is improving their access.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Steve, I think you wanted to provide a response to the questions. Go ahead.
Well, some of the issues brought up by Councilmember Wilson are when it's developed, traffic count, access to it, line of sight. Those are things that would be required when they go to develop. Our engineer is going to look at them and say, okay, how can access onto 4,000 work? And then they'll have to get a study drawn up and done of how it's going to happen. So the case in point is West Park subdivision on the south side of 48. They had to do a traffic study, and it came out there had to be a median. It was right turn in, right turn out, and a left turn in, but they couldn't turn left to get out. Again, because of line of sight, because of a few issues. This will probably be very similar. It'd be right in, right out, and you're not going to cross 4,000 to head west. You're probably not going to hit 4,000 to head south. This would be the same issues, traffic count, line of sight, if Mr. Weekland was to develop today with his business. He just happened to be at a time when the county was doing the development and probably didn't have those requirements at the time. Snow removal is always a concern with every development. How, where, why, what, those are things that the Planning Commission look at, take in consideration, but most developers have to solve that problem. We ask the question, they get to solve it. There's things that they get to do. So, having a rezone request where all of a sudden vehicle count and line of sight are part of the discussion concerns me, because it's not part of the requirements for a rezone. That's part of the requirements for a development. And I don't want to get stuck up or stuck on, of things that they don't know, because again, as Matt said, they're not going to spend that kind of money on something they don't even know if they can do.
Thank you.
Diane, I think you had
questions
more
were
questions.
for Andy. So Andy, when you were talking about the development plan, is this something that would pass on from owner to owner then? Would this be subsequent, number one? And then as they were talking about being willing to do the maintenance and the liability and stuff of that paving, is that something that could be part of the development plan? And again, would that be passed on if they, or when they choose to sell the property to someone else?
Yeah, let me give you my thoughts on that, Diane. We could always put a restriction in that it's only applicable to this as part of the development agreement, that it's only applicable to these people. But I want to reiterate something that I think is really important here. We're just looking at approving a rezone. We're not looking at approving this development. So a lot of those questions would be addressed at a later time. So I kind of look at this as you can either approve it as is, you can deny it if you'd like, you can table it if you'd like, or you can approve it with the condition that we have a development agreement. And while I've been here, I've been thinking, we want to make sure we limit that height to 3 stories. We could say storage units only, and make sure that we're saying this guarantees only the rezone. It doesn't guarantee subsequent approvals that this would need, because there's still got to be a lawsuit that needs to go through. Once that lawsuit's taken care of, there's access requirements that need to be met. There's width requirements. There's a lot of other requirements. So if we do a development agreement, those are the types of things that I would want to see in there. And I think they would have to be part of that motion. We've got to make sure that there's compliance with all other laws too. So really all we're doing right now is just saying whether we would agree or allow a rezone. We're not saying whether we would allow this project to go through or not. And I'd spell that out in the agreement again, that's all we're doing. We're not guaranteeing the project by entering it into a development agreement. All we're really guaranteeing is that they just won't build any higher if they do build and can meet all the other requirements.
And just to clarify then, that development agreement would go in perpetuity, I guess, then for whoever owns it in the future.
We could make it that way.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank
Diane,
you.
anything else?
I have a question.
Please, Jan.
So Andy, you're saying we could accept the rezone with the stipulation that we're looking at a height agreement or stipulations, a development agreement. Could we also table it with the idea that we get that development agreement set before we make a vote?
Yeah, you could do that too.
Okay, that's
You
my
okay with
question.
that? Okay, anything else? Any other comments?
I went for a ride down there today with Matt to Mr. Weekland's property. So what you're saying now, that if you only did a 26-foot wide road, it wouldn't go right up to his property? Like he, I talked to him about that. The reason he doesn't want that road down there is because he just feels that with the runoff, the drainage, and it'll have no speed limit on it. And he really, was opposing it because he thinks it will affect his property. But like you're saying, we can't even do anything now because of the lawsuit. So it could be years before lawsuit could be settled. Is that what you were saying, Andy?
Go ahead, Steve, you want to respond to that?
Well, I'll let Andy kind of answer some of her questions, and I'd like to answer some of it as well.
Yeah, they've got that lawsuit. Again, we're not a party to it, but they're going to have to get through that.
So to answer your questions, Councilmember Jackson, the lawsuit hinders more of the development than the rezone. So they have to get through that first. As for water runoff, with every development, that's a concern that they have to solve. So this would be a private road. They would have to solve how are they going to handle the water. Now they can slope it to come to them, and they have a retention pond that they capture it, or it goes into a land drain somewhere. But those are things that they would have to solve. How do you control speed? I don't know. Look at 5700 South. They could probably do speed humps or speed bumps or stuff like that, because again, it is a private
I object
drive.
to that reference of 5700 South, just to be on the record.
They can control it, by more different means than a city could.
Okay.
5700 South had a speed limit of what, Joe? 25, and people are still doing 40. Even with the control measure of speed. So a private road can do speed humps and speed bumps and speed dips that would control it, because I'm not going to race down there if all of a sudden I'm jumping or bumping my car. So those are things that they can do, but that's all done. The Planning Commission, our engineer, our public works, our fire department are really good at making sure each development does what they are required to do.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Council, any other questions?
I really like the idea of Jan's, where we know for sure what this development agreement would be before we actually move to zone it. I like the idea of tabling and doing it. So it sounds like, Andy, that's a pretty legitimate thing to get that development beforehand. That way we know what it is when we vote for it.
That could be done.
Okay, so Jan, Diane, since you both brought it on the table, I need a motion.
I move that we table this item.
Okay, so I have a motion. I have a motion to table this. Do I have a second? Okay, so I have a motion to table by Wilson.
Steve has a comment.
I'm in a motion right now, so let me get through the motions.
Then I want to amend the motion to listen to Steve's comment.
Hold on just one second. I have a motion to table this agreement. I just want to make sure I got these motions down. By Wilson, and I have a second by Jackson. Okay, now, our policy says comments before we go for a vote, please. Parkinson?
Mine was just if on the motion, stipulate what it is you're wanting. Just tabling it, just tables it. But I would say table it with the intent that the development agreement is developed and you guys look at it. So it's not a forever when, it's when this is done, you will look at it again.
That was going to be my amendment.
Okay. So we have a motion then to table. And we have a second. Andy, the question is, I have to go through that, or can I come back and to amend this motion to table with the stipulation that we basically get to look at a particular development agreement?
You can do that motion, the amended motion, yes.
Okay, so let's go through this process then. I have a motion to table it by Wilson. I have a second by Jackson. Andy, I need to know if I can make a stipulation at this point before the vote to amend it to add a development agreement.
Yeah, and come back as soon as we have the development agreement.
Okay. Okay, so that's the motion. We table it and we come back with the development agreement. Okay, I'm going to do a roll call vote on this one. I want to make sure the record shows how we stand. Morgan, would you please do a roll call vote?
Yes. Councilmember Saxton.
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell.
Can you remind me, Mayor, so this is with the amendment, is that
Yes.
correct?
It's an amendment to basically we have a draft form of a development agreement for us to look at.
But Andy, by Robert's Rules of Voters, don't you have to vote on the amendment and then vote on?
You vote on the amended, yes, you're absolutely right. And that's how it is in our rules of procedure. So my understanding is that amended motion is what we're voting on right now. It includes that we're coming back with a development agreement.
That's what we're voting on, yes.
Okay, aye.
Finish.
Councilmember Paul.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, then here's what we agreed to. We agreed then on ordinance 20-13 to table it with an amendment that basically says that the council needs to see a development agreement, a draft agreement, so we know what we're basically deciding. We'll go ahead and work that. I'm going to then motion that we table ordinance 20-14 because we need ordinance 20-13 to help us get through 20-14, which is the amendment to the zoning map. So do I have then a motion to table then ordinance 20-14?
So moved.
Okay, Wilson tabled. Motion ordinance 20-14. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Jackson, I think I heard you say that. Thank you. Okay. I think I can do it. I'm just going to do it by roll call. Let's keep this thing going. Morgan, would you do a roll call vote on tabling ordinance 20-14?
Yes. Councilmember Paul.
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson.
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton.
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay. Appreciate that conversation and that discussion. Let's go ahead and move to resolution 20-38, changing one deputy chief into a battalion chief. I think, Chief, you're going to discuss that, please.
Yes, sir, Mayor. Thanks again to be able to the council and yourself for allowing me to basically present this to the council and stuff about how we could potentially improve our department and our operational as seen. Basically, we're going to take a deputy position. We used to have two, and they were both over operations, and they both had split different training operations between the two of them as well. We have since no longer have a secondary deputy that was highly into our EMS and EMS training. We've split those duties amongst the captains, other crews within the department, and what we're lacking right now is a battalion chief to be able to be a training officer and a health and safety officer, as well as being over operations. So that's basically the job description that has been presented, and we've actually run it through, obviously city manager, HR, and for review, and established a gap that we didn't have before. Basically, you could go from captain or even a firefighter paramedic, for example, and right into a deputy position. So there's not really a progression or a defined path for you to go within the department. So I've separated those a little bit to include more definition in here about what certification, education, what that focus would be to separate the captain and the deputy chief to have a true role in between our department. So that's really what the job description entails. And I can, we've also done some other pieces to that. We've actually done the position and actually put it in the salary line on the annual salary line, hourly wage, to be equivalent to what our fire lieutenant is police lieutenant is in our city. So this actually falls in line with within our city salary lines already, and based off of the hours worked. But this position, in a sense, will actually serve as our training officer, health and safety officer, and oversee our operation to direct supervision of our captains. And it frees up that deputy to be a fire marshal, look over our equipment and our vehicles, which is what his job description is really laid out to be as well. The other piece of that, is the org charts that we had before. Let me try to share this one with you as well. This is the way our org chart was laid out before. Deputy Chief Fire Prevention Operations, as you see, Deputy Chief EMS Training and Operations. So there was, and their job descriptions were exactly the same. So there wasn't much difference in that process. And so what I'm doing now, or what I'm proposing, is to basically take that deputy chief that we had, and which is now in a lower grade as well, and actually get them into training and health and safety, and based off of the time that I've been here, those are two things that are very important and needed in this department to actually do that. So that battalion chief will fill a vital role in our organizational structure as well, to be able to manage and help us serve the citizens a little bit more, as well as better preparing us to respond in the training, health and safety role. And with that, I just recommend that we approve resolution 20-38. Any questions for me?
Okay, Chief. Any questions, Council?
I just have a comment.
Please.
I just think this restructuring shows some fiscal mindfulness as well as department needs addressed by our fire department. I mean, I appreciate that they're looking at restructure.
Okay, thank you. Jan, anybody else have a comment, questions? Okay, hearing none, then do I have a motion to approve resolution 20-38, changing one deputy chief into battalion chief position within the Royse City Fire Department?
So moved.
Okay, Joe, Paul.
I'll second it.
I'll second it.
Okay, Burrell. Okay, this is a roll call vote. Morgan?
Councilmember Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye, and I want to thank the chief for doing this. Excellent job.
Thank you.
and Councilmember Paul.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Morgan. Okay, we just approved resolution 20-38, changing one deputy chief into a battalion chief. Thank you. We're now going to jump into the city managers and council report. Matt, do you have anything you want to share with us?
Yes, I just have a couple of things. Tonight, sitting through city council meeting, I've had the luxury of looking outside at the holiday lights. Wanted to thank those employees. There's 16 employees that have done a phenomenal job. Additional employees that put together an event during the COVID times. They're very skilled and able to do so in a safe manner. I've seen the video. I've had people text me about the video personally and just really enjoyed it. So thank you to staff for doing all of that. As you guys know, we had a balanced budget back in June, and in that budget, I bring this up because tonight was the presentation on the CAFR. We had a balanced budget in June for this next fiscal year. Unrestricted cash flow was decreased, as we all know. I don't want to go into a lot of the details because we've gone through that. But with this being said, in that budget, we had it approved for merits in June or in January for city employees. And we did it this way to have a tiered approach to say, if revenues are declining, we can react to that and take that. Or if revenues are going up, we just have a little bit of play. But with the CAFR presentation tonight, they didn't get a lot into the details, but revenues came in really strong. We can debate why. We were in COVID. We did get a lot of money stimulated into the economy. I think that is the general purpose, is to stimulate and create spending in the economy. But in effect, sales tax came out pretty strong. With that being said, going forward, we've only had a couple of months in sales tax. Those 2 months indicate the same type of trend. They're still coming in strong. But with this conversation, what I'm getting to is I don't see a reason why we hold off the city merit or the merit to city employees. The numbers are still coming in strong. And what we would need to do is nothing. It was approved this way. And that was part of the plan. If we wanted to make an adjustment to it, we would need to have that action. I wanted to get to this meeting because we still have another meeting. If we choose to do so, we can have that action. But I would recommend going forth with the proposed budget. It was balanced. Numbers are coming in a little bit better than we originally anticipated. So with that being said, if we have any comments or any conversation that you feel needs to have happen, or if not, you can get with me later and we can have another discussion at the next council meeting. But
Yahoo!
I make a motion to approve it.
No, there's nothing to approve. Nothing to approve.
I think it's important for our employees to recognize that we see their good works and want to support that. I think that's really critical, that they know that we have no opposition to that. When the monies are there, we're happy to support them.
Okay.
I agree. We have such good employees and we want to make them stay in Roy City and not wander off to another city.
Okay, let me just, so I think what you're hearing, Matt, would be is go ahead and make your budget adjustment. Let's present that either at the next city council meeting or the first city council meeting in January.
Okay,
I think you've got the council.
We'll need to do a budget adjustment. We wanted to do a budget adjustment, but it won't have anything to do with the merits. The merits were included in the initial budget.
On the original budget? Okay.
Yes. So they're already included in there.
Now, having said that, council, what about any increases to the city council members? City council members have not had an increase in salary for at least 4 years.
Longer than that.
Probably longer than that. And it's
okay.
okay.
This is a service position. This is a service position.
I would agree with that.
We're still in a pandemic. Absolutely not, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. I think it is a service position.
Okay. And I got 2 comments. So about the other 3 of you.
I'm new to this position. I feel it's a service position, and when I was running, I didn't even know you got paid to begin with, so I'm good.
Okay.
I think it's great that we haven't had to lift our stipends or payment, and so I fully support that. I think Matt knows that by now, but I'm probably the cheapest guy, so anyway.
Well, the reason for the comment is more to do about if in fact there is people interested in being elected to the position.
They'll learn
The
to serve.
If it's more about serving or whether or not you're getting compensated, I will indicate to you, there's a lot of monies that is invested in these jobs and these assignments. And sometimes the stipend, as you suggested, Brian, doesn't compensate for the amount of time and energy you invest in terms of doing the job. But just recognize that the city council has chosen over the last at least 5 years, I believe, has chosen not to take any pay increase, any cost of living increase, any increase where in fact the employees have. And in the past, they basically had done it in large part because they wanted to make sure that money went to the employees. And I think that's admirable. That's the reason why we voted for it.
I was going to say, take our increases and add it to the employee bonuses or merits or whatever. The employees.
I would agree with Joe. I would absolutely agree with Joe.
Okay, just going to indicate to you is that it is a council decision. As interesting and as unique that is, it is a council decision in terms of whether or not you decide you want to pay yourself some type of cost of living allowance. But I'll leave it to the decision is it's not going to be in the budget, so therefore we won't worry about it until next budget cycle. Okay, anything else, Matt?
Yes, I do appreciate that. Speaking from the employees, I know that they very much appreciate you guys as well. I did have a bit of good news. I shouldn't say a little while, for a long while, up on 4,000 and 1900 West, there's an electrical box kind of in that little area where you're turning right on a 1900. Good news is Public Works staff had a meeting today. They are planning on moving that. And they're planning on bidding that out in March, and it should be moved by the summertime. So that will no longer be an obstruction to see on 1900 West when you're turning right there. And then not only do we have beautiful holiday lights out here in Memorial Park, we have beautiful lights throughout the city. I just want to remind people to get their nominations in by December 18th for the holiday lights. We honestly haven't been too successful getting those nominations. However, it is December 1st, so we're still pretty early on in that game. But if you wanted to participate in just doing the nominations, feel free to do so, or anybody listening, feel free to email admin@royutah.org to get that nomination in for those Christmas lights. So that's
Perfect.
all I have. Thanks.
Yeah, great comments. Just echoing that point, we've been working for 3 years to get that intersection between 1900 and 4000 fixed. The records show we had significant incidents there, not big damage issues, but they've had enough fender benders over the years that we think what UDOT is about to do is going to help us fix that problem, and we're excited about that. And by the way, Council, in reference to the comment about Christmas light contest, we would ask you to help consider, once that's put in motion, that you be the judges and that you go around and actually look at them, pick out the top 10, top 5, top 3, whatever Morgan and Matt come up with. So we'd ask your participation in that. Council, anything you'd like to share us? Any comments? Anything you'd like to see done?
Matt, will you get us a list when you have that available?
Yes, the plan is on December 18th, when those are due. December 19th, we'll get a list out to the council members and also put it on Facebook and the website just to advertise to people. We have to get permission from the families, obviously, to use their addresses, and we'll do so meantime. But yes, we'll get you a list as they come out.
Thank you.
So Matt, I have a question. Is the street sweeper done for the year? I've had some concerned citizens call me about their neighbors' leaves in their gutters. They've emailed me addresses and wanted to know if there's an ordinance or something that can make them clean up their leaves. I didn't know if the street sweeper is done for the year or if I should just go down there and do it myself.
It is still in operation. Obviously, this time of year, there's probably a lot of that because of how many leaves are falling in the city streets. If you could,
I'll just give you an address then.
onto us, yes, we can take a look at it.
Perfect. And that's what we need to do. Council, anything else you're hearing? Anything else you'd like to be done in the city?
I just want you to know we're still working on our signs. They're getting ready to, I don't know if I haven't asked Matt, the engineer and the designer of the rocks that we're putting in are working on that right now to get that approved. And we're still trying to get it pushed through before the end of the year, depending on the weather. But we're still working on that. And I wanted to thank whoever put the lights up on 1900 too, and on all those street lights. I just love looking down 1900, and it just gives you the old feeling of an old town city. I don't know. And then the video, whoever made that was awesome too. So I just
did a nice job.
Want to congratulate those people.
Thank you.
Okay. Other comments? Okay, I have one last thing, if I can. Maybe you can help here. I don't see Travis in here. Yes, I do.
Yeah,
some of the city residents, including myself, basically bought some park benches. Can you give us a status on the park benches?
Sure. We have ordered the benches. Obviously, as you know, we had staff go out and meet with the people and decide on locations, and we ordered the benches. We're hoping to get in. I'll check in tomorrow and send out an email, but we're hoping to get them right at the first of the year.
Okay, so probably sometime in the spring, you'll go ahead and start installation.
Yep.
Travis, are you maxed out on numbers, or
no,
is that
we can still take some more.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Travis. And Brian, in reference to it, won't go into the details, but in reference to the conversation you and I had earlier, if you believe we need to take an issue up or work something, please put it as a discussion item on the agenda. Council, you have that authority. Whatever discussion item you want to put on the agenda, and that can help facilitate if we need to take some action in the city. So please take advantage of that. Other than that, Council, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion we adjourn.
Okay, Jackson, motion to, I think I heard Burrell say second.
Sure.
There you go. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay.